Hey, practice owners. Back with another in our series, Coming Back Stronger. And, you see a lot of the practice owners on and a lot of key opinion leaders. Our guest today is somebody you may or may not have seen. I have a feeling that you'll see more of. He's done some contributing to the Profitable Dentist magazine. And, we're looking forward to a lot more content from our guest today. Frank King. I was trying to think of how to introduce you, Frank, and either it was a long list, a broad list. You're a comedian who talks about depression and suicide, which, there's just a lot to unpack there. And then in this sort of current situation, the coronavirus situation, you have a very interesting story, which I'd like to get you to sort of introduce who you are, but then move into that. And you're that guy. You're the cruise ship guy, right?
I'm that guy. Yeah.
Okay.
I am. Also, I was a writer for Leno for
cool.
about 20 years for the Tonight Show.
Okay.
I comedian for 34.
Mm-hmm.
And this current situation, people are, I can't believe this. So bad. I go, look, I've had 2 aortic valve replacements, a double bypass, a heart attack, 3 stents. I can tell you what the barrel of my gun tastes like, and I lost to a puppet on Star Search. This is not the worst thing that's ever happened.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not gonna be any big problem coming back strong. Trust me, after you.
Okay. So you've done it. You're an experience coming back strong.
Oh God. I was sort of ground zero, although it was on the water for the coronavirus outbreak. Mm-hmm. I was in the Western Pacific on a ship called the Westerdam, Holland, America.
Okay.
No cases of the virus. None of the 2,500 of us ever tested positive. The Diamond Princess, on the other hand, was a raging petri dish of the virus because we did not allow anybody who'd been to mainland China the last 2 weeks to get on our ship. And the Diamond Princess didn't take that precaution. So fast forward, after being turned down, being able to port at 5 places. They turned us down in the Philippines, South Korea, Japan, Guam, and Thailand. We finally landed in Cambodia. And as luck would have it, it was the last official day of the cruise, last day of my contract. And the next morning I got up and they were going to test everybody with the WHO test for the Pasteur Institute, and the CDC was there in Cambodia. And no temperature, hadn't been to China, no symptoms, and the CDC guy says to me, Frank, there's no reason you have to stay here. Go home. Okay. So I bought an amazingly expensive Emirates $1,600 plane ticket, middle seat, 15 hours, and flew home and cleared the CDC in Seattle, 2 hours, interview, test, and made the mistake of speaking to the media after I got through customs immigration. And here's the thing I've learned about the media. I told them the story, cleared by the CDC on both ends, never had the virus, nobody did. I thought the truth would be, an effective way. And I saw something this morning, Galileo thought telling the truth was a good idea until they threw him in jail for doing it.
Right.
So the way the media portrayed it was they used the Q word, quarantine. Comedian slips quarantine in Cambodia, comes back, drags the virus to the Northwest. So the troll traffic was I had to change our home phone number. I had to deactivate 3 social media accounts, death threats. People posted maps to our house online. My poor wife has a very public-facing job as a cashier at a grocery store. Mm-hmm. And if she heard it once, she heard it 100 times. Are you married to that guy? So I heard it so much that I bought the domain imthatguy.me.
Okay.
I'm going to have business cards printed up to say that guy and my phone number. Oh, you're that guy? I'm that guy.
It made it in the New York Times, right?
New York Times, the New York Post, the Daily Mail, and the Independent in London, Entertainment Tonight, Inside Edition, the Today Show, Nightly News, Lester Holt, and a raft of smaller media outlets. And
the Profitable Dentist, you made that. Yeah.
I made the Profitable Dentist. Thank God you guys didn't put the word quarantine in my
right. It'll be nowhere in any story we do, I promise you.
Yeah, because I knew that the internet bullying was a thing, but being 63, if I was a teenager, I really understand how bad it can be. Now I have a real good appreciation, and I don't have to see those people ever again. If you're a teenager and you're being bullied internet wise, you got to go back to school with the same people. I just can't imagine how bad that is. And then I didn't quite understand the cancel culture, where people perceive you've done something that offends them, whether you have or not, turns out. Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and Louis C.K. all did bad things. I did it by the book and told the truth. And so people say, we're going to make sure you never get another speaking gig. We're going to make sure another comedy club never books you, which I asked them if I get that in writing. My favorite was, being a comedian. Guy called me, you came back to this county to kill everybody. I said, no, I've got a list and you just made the VIP section.
So maybe some good does come out of it, huh?
Well, yeah, and I'm doing it. I just got an audition for a TED Talk. Spokane. And the title of the talk is Going Virtual. Going Viral. Going Viral. How the cancel culture and the coronavirus killed my comedy career. And I sent it in on purpose because I knew the committee would see Frank King, coronavirus, cancel culture, and go, that guy?
Right. So
I only sent it to one committee, knowing that given the topical nature of all of that, they go, oh my God, it's that guy. So anyway, yeah, so that's fortunately most of that has passed, and it'll be a great TED Talk. And
that's a good segue into, dentists are, I don't want to say you have to be thick skinned in a certain way, but not so thick skinned in other ways. And of course the name of this series is Coming Back Stronger, and to be forward focused, to be focused on visualizing when you come back. But there are a lot of docs right now going, they're scared to death that they do something, they see a patient and suddenly they become, it's, if you go outside without a mask now, you get the stink eye. Or if I'm at my office, I'm the only car in the parking lot, and, you can see people looking like, uh-oh, what's that guy doing? And, that's tough for somebody who went to dental school and isn't used to that sort of, they're used to people looking at them in a positive light. So, to sort of a good segue into your whole topic is how to deal with depression and suicide.
And also with the cancel culture and the trolling, because if somebody saw somebody going to a dentist's office, and let's say it was somebody who they've got an issue, it's not an emergency dental problem, but it's annoying. They've been told, as they have here, you can't have that worked on until June 16th.
Right.
And they see somebody coming and going from a dentist's office, and they maybe get a picture of it or a little short video. And they put it up online. All of a sudden, the trolls that's the cancel culture. They take umbrage at something you've done, whether they understand it or not, and they just come after you. And then that's how they stoke their ego by likes and shares and whatever comments on these things they post that are awful. So yeah, I think you've got to be very careful. It's one thing to get nailed on Yelp,
Right,
get a 1 star because you can't give them 0. It's another if it goes, and it was Instagram and Facebook, and both on Facebook, my personal and my business, and Twitter was just, anyway.
And it takes on a life of its own, right?
It did.
And there's nothing you can do about it. If it's a bad review or a bad post, or, oh my gosh, look at Dr. Jones' office. And you're right. Once it starts, you just sit back and watch, right?
And here's something that I'm going to talk about in my TED Talk if I get booked for it. Is it with the cancel culture? There's no means for redemption. There's no way for you to explain what you've done and or apologize. They're not interested in an explanation. I just quit telling people the true story about the CDC because it didn't make any, it came down to the point where I realized it didn't make any difference. And there's no way, and I apologize. Look, if I scared anybody coming back, I understand why you might be frightened. I would be too if I was in your shoes. Didn't make any difference. So because there's no way to redeem yourself in this situation, you're right. You just have to sit back and hope to God you have a business when it's all right. I lost 2 corporate bookings, and we don't know how many I lost in that time period when a client maybe went to the Google, typed in my name, and all of a sudden all this stuff comes up, and they're like, well, hey, we can't book that guy. So I'll never know. And a dentist would never know how many patients either didn't come back or they lost because they got Googled. Maybe they were just looking for the office address, Dr. Parker. And oh my God, look at this, honey. So yeah, it's So that's an extra layer that you talk about not getting that instruction in dental school.
It is. That's added stress. So, on top of the stress you have going on now, and there are docs seeing patients and, they're doing what they do. They get a call, somebody's in pain. They're empathetic, plus it's their job, and they do what they normally do. And so I guess one message is to be very conscious and careful of the appearance of everything you do. And don't let that cross over into an emergency being, I need 4 new veneers. Because that is a thing that once that's out, that's that will come back to avalanche on you, or can.
Yeah, and people are hyper aware. I mean, you're in a grocery store. I notice who's not wearing a mask. I notice who doesn't stand behind the blue table on the floor. I notice, and there's some anger there, some resentment. I wear a mask, and the mask nowadays, it's really to protect other people from me in case I have it and I'm asymptomatic. Mm-hmm. But still, I wear it because it just people don't look at me sideways. Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and it's but it's I think it's the I don't know. I imagine there'll be some practices that do close. It's like I think 30-40% of restaurants may never open up again.
I just read that. So let's talk about depression and suicide. And you have they're on the list. They're not the top of the list, but dentistry in itself is up the list of I guess occupations with a higher than normal suicide rate.
Yeah, sometimes I say to the dentist, I got good news, I got bad news. Good news is, contrary to popular belief, dentists don't have the #1 rate of suicide among all occupations. Mm-hmm. The bad news is they're in the top 10. Yeah. It goes like this: construction, mining, excavation, fishing, farming, forestry, and then dentists, veterinarians, and physicians. And then you get your first responders, military. The reason I do dentists, 2 reasons. One is that my father went to school from grade 1 to grade 12 with a guy named Russell Walton, who went to Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill, and went to dental school there and graduated first in his class. Now, if you talk to Russell, because he was a farmer as well, raised cattle, you would not think this guy graduated first in his class. Mm-hmm. But he was really bright. Anyway, my dad died at 40 of a heart attack. I had the valve job and had it fixed at 39. And of course, my mom's single mom, mid-60s, 64, 65. Got 2 kids to raise. She had to go to work full time and raising on one salary, woman's salary in 65. And Dr. Walton never charged us a dime for anything. He knew the money that he would be taking from my mother could be better spent on other things. And so the reason I have all my natural teeth to this day is that the kindness of Dr. Walton. That's just the kind of guy he was. And so the other thing is, when I began speaking on suicide prevention, started looking around for target market. And the dentists are in that top 10 or 12. Here's the reason for dentists. Dentists were the first industry I could find that was actually doing something proactively to prevent suicide of their members. Okay. Seattle Study Club reached out to me. Mm-hmm. They found me and said, look, we're having a showcase in the summertime, kind of an one-off thing. We've never had anybody speak on suicide prevention. And we'd like you to come in and do 15-minute showcase on suicide prevention for dentists. So I did. So then they vetted me, and I've done a number of study clubs since then. And because they are actively seeking solutions. Same reason I do veterinarians. They follow the dentist. And construction as #1. So they are all over it. But for example, farmers, even though they're in the top 5, I've approached a number of farm bureaus and they're like, listen, we think it's really distasteful for you to call us about this. Right. Like, you're in the top 5. Right. Farm income's down to half of what it was in 2012. Commodity prices, do you have any idea how low I've got a friend who's a farmer. And, you're losing people left and right. And okay, all right, well, when you get around to it, I'll be here.
So is it and in that case, I mean, that seems obvious. There's a lot of pressure in the occupation you chose, whether it's, you bought a farm, so you're in it, you're not dabbling, you own the thing, or you're a dentist, you have a 4-year degree in dentistry. So it's hard to say, I'm going to change my mind and go be an accountant. I mean, you're in it.
The thing about dentists being in it is, same with veterinarians. The average 4 out of 5 dentists, 4 out of 5 veterinarians come out of professional school with about $350,000 in student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
And then, whether you're buying into a practice or starting a practice, it could be another $250,000, 300,000. So you wake up every first of the month with a nut, like $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
And even if your practice is wildly successful, that means you're going to have to add to staff. And so here's the big killer of dentists, by the way, and veterinarians and physicians. It's not suicide. It's stress-induced or exacerbated mental and physical illness, high blood pressure, heart disease, depression, thoughts of suicide. It's the stress, the financial stress, which means you're going in early, you're staying late, you're working through lunch. I talked to a dentist whose dad had been a dentist, and he goes, yeah, my old man used to go for an hour and a half run at lunchtime. I mean, the guy can't conceive how a dentist could take an hour and a half off in the middle of the day.
Right.
But he was taking care of his physical health.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people about this. You have to control the things you can control. And if you're mentally ill, you figure that out early.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have what they call a safe care plan. And my safe care plan basically is diet. I'm on the keto diet and I fast. I do the 18-6, 18 hours fasting, 6 hours eating. Mm-hmm. I get a good night's sleep every night. It's especially important when you're at loose ends like this, where you're working from home, that you pick a time to go to bed every night and set the alarm to get up every morning. Okay. Schedule. Mm-hmm. They interviewed an astronaut who'd been in the space station for a year, pretty much by himself. And they want to know, how do you socially isolate? How do you do that successfully? And that's one of the first things he said. You need a routine. Mm-hmm. Go to bed same time, set your alarm, and then schedule your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. And then schedule your exercise time. Hopefully you got a little exercise equipment at home or take a walk. And then schedule your fun time. If you're going to binge watch the new season of Ozark on Netflix, then pick a time to do that. And he said limits, especially now, limit the amount of media you're consuming about the coronavirus and the pandemic and the isolation. And pick reliable sources. I think so far the best sources I've found are the mayor of the city you're in, or the governor of the state you're in, because they're on the ground right there. They've got their finger on the pulse of what's happening in that geographic area. They know how many ventilators they've got. Oregon just sent 120 ventilators to New York because Kate Brown got on top of it early, shut everything down early, and so we don't have as many cases. So we were able to spare, and Cuomo said, look, you send them to us. When we get done, we'll send them back to you because you'll probably need them because you'll be next. So limit, especially if you had children in the house. I wouldn't have the news running 24/7, morgues, refrigerated trucks, death count, because kids soak that stuff up whether you realize it or not.
Oh, they do. And I think you internalize it whether you realize it or not. And so that, that's the first time I've heard somebody say that. That's smart. What I notice is, and I notice my wife, because I'm more of an observer of things, in what I do in my role, I'm watching how things happen. One of the things I notice is whenever something happens, and you want to turn the news on, I don't know if a satellite crashes into the ocean or whatever it is, and it's going to be about a week-long news cycle. Within, I don't know, by tomorrow morning, there is a very dramatic, now it's not a satellite crashed into the ocean, it's satellites crashing into Earth. And they suddenly had this ominous lead-in music.
Yeah.
Everything has a title. It's not just satellite crashed into Earth, it's satellite crisis. And, and so you can stand back and watch that. But after a little while, when you turn it on, so they have to up their game every day and they get a little smoother and better at it. And it's so subtle, I think you don't notice, but suddenly it's an hour later and you're watching something that you think, all right, whatever they were going to say, number one, they said 10 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago. And number two, if I just turn it off now and take a walk, or like you said, work on you, nothing's going to happen before tomorrow at 2 when they do it again that I'm not going to know about. If somebody finds a cure tonight, or we get a text that says, all right, crisis over, everybody go back to work, I'll know about it. But their job is to draw you in. And I think dentistry is like that. You see it as a I don't know if I'm asking how to explain it or not, but do you see that's part of the problem? They're so focused on understanding the problem that they miss stepping back and saying, the problem is I'm too focused on the problem.
Yeah, it's a problem we can't control, whether you're a dentist or a chiropractor or a comedian. All my bookings are gone. Fortunately, most of them didn't cancel. They just moved to 2021. And I cannot control that. And what I advise my speaker friends and other entrepreneurs, I immediately developed a keynote called Social Distancing and Staying Sane.
Okay.
So, because that's what people want to know, what to expect, what to do, what not to do, how to like the safe care plan, diet, exercise. I meditate twice a day. I have a little thing. It's a MP3 of it's called Cat Napper. It's a guided meditation, takes me down, brings me back up 30 minutes later. Just a reset, lowers your cortisol, raises your endorphins, lowers your blood pressure. And that's something, if you're a dentist and you've got this financial burden, then you're working through lunch. I mean, even just a sandwich and a good book for half an hour to take your mind off, the situation would be terrific. I believe there will be some people in almost all professions who may need a little something in the way of medication for situational depression. They're not organically wired like I am. My whole family has generational depression and suicide, but they may be the point where they just need something to take the edge off for, until end of hostilities. And then maybe a month after that, then they'd taper off. Because most people, sometime in their lives, have situational depression and thoughts of suicide. Right. And so, what I teach is how to spot that in somebody. Here's a way to tell somebody's depressed. Yeah. Can't eat too much, can't sleep too much. Has trouble getting out of bed in the morning. That's why you set your alarm. Okay. But kind of rallies in the afternoon. They let their personal hygiene go. So if you call a compatriot of yours, a dentist, or a team member, and you guys, you're Zooming and you're looking at him thinking, did he wash his hair this morning? Mm-hmm. That may be an indication that he or she is struggling with situational depression. And you need to flat out ask them, look, I just took a course on depression, thoughts, suicide for, folks in the dental business. And one of the things they said was, you might ask them, you having trouble getting out of bed in the morning? The funny side of that is, I have friends called me up and go, Frank, you're in the mental health business, right? Every day. I said, I'm not a mental health professional, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. They say, hey, let me describe my symptoms to you. I'm depressed. I have trouble sleeping. Eating. Some mornings it's all I can do, drag myself out of bed to wash my hair. Is there a mental health name for that? And I go, yeah, Thursday.
You just hit the nail on the head. Yes.
That's what I've been dealing with for decades. Yeah. And so what I tell people is, the reason I mentioned my new keynote, not to pimp my keynote, but what I want to do, my goals for this downtime is I want to come out of this smarter, leaner, faster, in better shape physically on the other end of this. So if you're a dentist or you're a team member, I've got a 3-hour suicide prevention CE online. You pay your money and you take the test at the end. You get 3 hours of suicide prevention CE, which, by the way, in the state of Washington is required for dentists and hygienists to renew in 2020. And I hope they make that all over the country one of these days, because that would be a bonanza. Yep. But it's a great idea. So if you're a dentist or a team member, I would, now's a great time to up your game CE-wise. There's lots of courses available. Some of them are free. You get that whole CE out of the way. So that's what I try to do. I try to control the things I can control. I created a new keynote. I got another one coming. I'm working on my SEO. I got two new websites about to launch, one for TEDx coaching, one for my mental health speaking. So I'm using all this time as wisely as possible, planting seeds. So as a dentist, I think, you look around and see how when all is said and done, we go back to near normal, how are you going to be better? How is the practice going to be better? Yeah. How caught up are you going to be on all the other stuff you never seem to have time to catch up on? Of course, my wife says, or a friend of mine says about his wife, what worries him is he has said to her many times, look, I don't have time now to do that, but when I have time, oh God.
Right.
The honey-do list is eternal.
You bet. You stepped in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great time to catch up and get ahead. Yeah. And focus on the things you can control. That's something that people with mental illness, and we do something called gamification. If you're struggling to get out of bed in the morning because you're worried about your practice and whatever, then what depressed people do is called gamification.
Okay.
I make a list of half dozen things to do. And the game is, once I've scratched off number 6, I don't care if it's broad daylight outside, I can go back to bed and binge watch whatever.
Okay.
That's the game. That's how I win. And so I march through those 6 things, because the antithesis of depression, anxiety, stress, and thought suicide is activity, is forward motion. If you can just get up and get going and start scratching things off the list, and that's how I get to the gym. I live 25 minutes from my gym, and if I'm really depressed, that's a long ride.
Right.
And the longest ride is from my bed to the door and out of the car and get it. So my deal with the gym is my gamification. If I get to the gym, all I've got to do is 1 rep of 1 exercise, and I can turn around and go home. Now, I've never done that, but that's the deal.
Right.
I get there, and the other night in a hotel, I was exhausted. I had my gym clothes on, went downstairs to the gym. I wanted to do an hour on the elliptical, but I was just so tired. So I got on the elliptical, I did a minute and a half, and thought, I win. Back to the room. Next morning, I got up early and did an hour in the morning when I had the energy. But that's just called gamification. It's a great way to get moving forward and getting things done. Another thing I do is called half-hour power.
Okay.
I can do almost anything for half an hour. So let's say that I've got taxes to do. I'll set my timer on my iPhone. I'll start my taxes. And then when the iPhone goes off, ding, at the half-hour mark, I go outside and I cut the grass for half an hour. Ding. And then if it's taxes and something needs to be done, I do it every other half hour. But on the opposite half hour, I can do anything on my list. Clean the kitchen, cut the grass, watch Netflix, whatever. But I can do almost anything for half an hour. And so I call it half-hour power. And I can accomplish a lot in half-hour chunks.
Yeah.
But again, you've got a plan, you're moving forward, you're doing something, and that's the antithesis to, I'm not saying about cutting the grass, I'm sure you know this, is, when you get done, you look back, you can see what you did. I mean, it's something you can take. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've cut the grass and trimmed the edges, and then the sun's kind of going down, you're looking at the lawn going, looks pretty damn good.
I have that
accomplishment, some way to achieve beyond your practice.
Yeah. I do that. My wife and I have had that exact conversation. And, she says, why don't we just pay somebody to cut the grass? Why are you bothering with it? And in business, I'm making decisions today that I hope work out, but, I may not know in this situation, I may not know for months. But when you cut the grass, it's cut and you did it. And I do mine. So the reason she makes fun is I do one of those little cross-hatchy pattern things.
So my God.
Twice. And it's obsessive. It's ridiculous. And the funny thing is, in my neighborhood, there are 3 dentists. And we all do the exact same thing. We all cut our grass the same way. And I tell her it's sort of like my therapy. I'll put on some headphones and I will just, or listen to nothing and just do that. But yeah, you feel like you've accomplished something. And no, that's awesome advice. So and you covered a couple of really important things. One is just how to recognize depression in somebody else. And to kind of ask a question about that, is that something, that most people can see in themselves? Like you say, they know it's hard to get out of bed. And yes, it's Thursday, but it's a different kind of getting out of bed. Is that hard to see in yourself?
Yeah, and I hope when I do my keynoting, when I teach people signs and symptoms of depression, thoughts, suicide, I hope when they look in the mirror, and I'm sure this happens, they think to themselves, it's hard to get out of bed in the morning. Where have I heard that before?
Okay.
Wait a minute. Oh my God. Could I be depressed? Because I didn't know I was depressed until I had my first thoughts of suicide in my 20s. My girlfriend during college went to another school, and I just thought I was, lonely and lovesick. I have no doubt I was depressed now, but I didn't have a name for it. And I met a dentist at function a year ago, January. I described it's called chronic suicidal ideation, meaning for me, the option of suicide is always on the menu as a solution for problems large and small. And when I say small, I mean, my car broke down a couple of years ago. I had 3 thoughts: get it fixed, buy a new one, or I could just kill myself. That's chronic suicidal ideation. Sounds absurd, but she comes up after my keynote. She's crying so hard she can't speak. I said, you have chronic suicidal ideation. She said, no. So you didn't know it had a name? No. You thought you were just some kind of freak? No. I said, well, look, when you go back home, see your therapist. She had a therapist. Tell him what you learned. Tell him you Googled it. Don't tell him you learned it from a comedian. And a week later, I got an email. Said, Frank, I think I was at that dental convention just to meet you. You've changed my life. And I can't say that about a lot of people. So sometimes my job is not only to educate people who know they have, or people who are looking for it in others, but to let those people know, here are the signs, here are the symptoms. If you're checking boxes off when you're listening to me, my God, that's what. Then you're not alone. That her relief was palpable. That she wasn't just some kind of freak.
Yeah.
So the part of my keynoting is to educate people so they can either spot it in themselves or in others, and then what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do.
And I see that in the dental profession. Again, as a non-dentist, that's one of the things that, I see as an outsider view, is that dentists are very good at asking colleagues about a procedure. And they'll go to a study club and they'll talk about atraumatic extraction. They're all jazzed, but they leave. And, again, as back in my consulting days, I would know that, this one is within $12 of bankruptcy. This one is already in it. This one is losing their house. This one's getting a divorce, and everything's fine. And they don't share. So I think maybe that's the thing to come out of this is you think everybody's thinking this, and your job is just to smile and say everything's going great.
And, it's people who have depression, live with depression, are great actors. There's a reason I have a Screen Actors Guild card. I mean, I came out at age 52 in a TED Talk. My wife didn't know I was depressed and suicidal. My family didn't know. My friends didn't know. Nobody until I came out, and spilled it all on the TEDx stage. And men especially don't reach out. That's why I wrote the book, The Guts, Grit, and the Grind. It's a men's mental mechanics manual. And it's stories of men by men to help men. It's guys who are willing to tell their story. Things are good, things went bad, here's how I'm coping. Because men take advice from men. Now, men, let me tell you something about the veterinary and the dental business. More female dentists and veterinarians kill themselves than their male counterparts. Women attempt 3 times as much, 3 times as often as men.
Okay.
Men tend to complete because they use a gun. So it's not just a male, although males, 8 out of 10 people who die in the U.S. of suicide at this point are men.
Okay.
And men age 45, 54, generally Caucasian, but I mean, other races, whatever, are included. But matter of fact, I'm going to create a t-shirt called Save the Males.
Okay.
Like Save the Whale.
Put me down for one.
Yeah, I know. Every time I say that, people go, oh my God, that's
genius. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah.
Well, before we part company, let me give you a couple of signs of thoughts of suicide. Because again, sometimes people are having these thoughts and they don't connect them to something. They think that they're the only one thinking this way. That it's not a pathology. It's not, a comorbidity. It's not some kind of disease. If you find yourself or someone talking about death or dying, Googling death and dying, if it appears in the theme in their artwork, their music, their writing, if they are, of course, acquiring the means to die by suicide, whether it's stockpiling medication or buying a gun and ammunition, if they're putting their affairs in order,
okay,
and going around and saying goodbye to everybody, if they are giving away prized possessions, because they want to make sure when they're gone, those possessions go to the people they want them to go to. And if it's a pet they're giving away, that's really dangerous. The counterintuitive, most dangerous one is this. They've been depressed for a long time. Let's say because of the pandemic and the isolation and having to shut down the practice, they've been depressed. It's not quite time to open up the economy again, so they're still looking at some downside. But all of a sudden, the dentist is happy for no apparent reason. It's dangerous because, A, you're happy because they're finally happy. And B, they may be happy because they've chosen time, place, method, and they know the pain is coming to an end. That's what suicide is mostly all about. People say to me, I can't believe he wanted to kill himself. Chances are he didn't. He just wanted to end the pain.
Yeah.
He just wanted out. Or she just wanted out.
So when you see
people
that,
say, look, I would never kill myself, but if I didn't wake up tomorrow morning, that would be fine. That's called passive suicidality.
Okay.
If you find yourself thinking that, I wish the flu would kill me,
Right.
We need to talk. And here's the deal. If you hear this, it is your responsibility to flat out ask them, are you having thoughts of suicide? If you can't ask it, find somebody who can ask that question. It's an uncomfortable question. If they say they are, you say, do you have a plan? If they have a plan, all right, you tell me what your plan is. If it's detailed, get them on the phone with the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If it's not particularly detailed, next question should be, well, tell me this. Are you going to kill yourself? No. Last question, most important. Okay, you're not going to kill yourself. Tell me why not. Make them give voice.
Okay.
My family, my friends, my dog, my cat, whatever it is, make them give voice to that, why they're not going to kill themselves. That's the protocol.
That is, and I've lived a long time. I've lived 58 years, and I've never heard it, anything presented that well. And I think it's, Frank, like, especially this time, it is more important. I told you before we went on, the emails that I get and the texts and the phone calls and the sort of the desperation that, as practice owners, they don't reach out. Now is the time to do that. And just, like your friends in your study club, just check in, say, how you doing? And that is a great sort of blueprint for a conversation that may go a different way than you thought it was going to go.
Well, and here's the thing. I'm listening to Renee Brown. I kept hearing about Renee Brown, but how good could she be? Oh, dear God. She says, and I've said this in my keynote, empathy is the difficult thing. Sympathy is easy. Empathy is more difficult. And Renee Brown puts it this way. She goes, sympathy is you're feeling bad for someone. Empathy is you're feeling bad with someone.
Okay.
So let me give you my phone number.
Okay. I was going to ask, how would somebody get in touch with you?
858
Okay.
405 5653. 858 405 5653. If you didn't write it down, you go to thementalhealthcomedian.com or just type the mental health comedian in your Google search. You'll find me.
Okay.
And here's the deal. I tell people the reason I give my phone number every keynote. If you're suicidal, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If you're just having a really bad day, like I said, if you're just desperate, depressed, melancholy because of this, all this stuff, call a crazy person like me.
Okay.
And here's why. And Renee Brown said it best. She goes, I know my dark so well that I have no trouble sitting with you in yours.
So
tears every time I say it.
It does. And I'll share the same sort of thing. My wife, smartest woman I know, smartest person I know, she said she learned a long time ago, somebody had told her, and it works with kids too, we don't understand why they're struggling. And, again, that's why I want one of your shirts. As men, you just want to say, oh, it's not so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And, oh, you'll get over that. And yeah, that'll pass. And, she said what she learned was she calls it, get down in the hole with them.
Yeah.
They're in the hole. They're going to get out of the hole, hopefully, but just get down in the hole with them. Don't try to make it better. Let them talk. Just get down in the hole with them. And
the thing about, things get better. Don't worry. When I was a kid, it wasn't. What Renee Brown said, and I'm just listening to the book now, is what you're doing is you're giving them an answer through your lens. You're not looking at the problem through their lens.
Right.
It's like when people say, I'm depressed and suicidal. I've been depressed.
Doesn't help.
Yeah. Do you know the taste of the barrel of your gun? No. Well, it's a different depressed.
Yeah.
And there's a great story about, and she has a similar story in her book about the guy falls down the well, and a friend of his walks by and looks down and says, oh man, that sucks. Wish I could help you out. Walks on. Family member leans in. Oh, gosh, but there's no way for me to get down there. There's no way I can help you. And walks on. And then a stranger comes by, looks down, goes over the wall of the well, goes down as far as it can, hand over hand, and then drops to the bottom. And the person at the well goes, what are you doing? Because, well, I'm here to help you. Well, that's far be it for me to point out the obvious, but you are now in the well with me. And the stranger says, yes, but I've been here before and I know the way out.
That is a very profound story to end on. So Frank, you have been, I think you have provided a lot of value to a lot of docs, a lot of practice owners who are, feel like they're in a well right now. And,
Yep.
you know, and they think, and they're afraid to share that. And what I always say is that's okay. You know, a lot of Harvard MBAs are feeling the same thing, and they went to school just, you know, just for this. So, reach out. So I appreciate you being on. I appreciate you
Yeah.
sharing. I'm glad you got off the cruise ship. And I'm glad. And so I think the New York Times article was one somebody sent me, and I probably said the same thing. That guy, you know, I know that guy.
Well, the article in the New York Times talked about how even people who came back from that area who had tested negative still faced ostracizing.
Right. Yeah.
And that's, I did everything by the book, by the CDC rules, and it was just horrendous.
It's got to be. But it gives you, you know, so the good thing that comes out of it is, you know, you now have, I mean, it's a whole new story and it's a whole new perspective and a whole new thing. So, you know, and I can't wait to read. So it's guts, grit, and the grind.
Yep. A men's mental mechanical manual. And by the way, there's a great book by Malcolm Gladwell called David and Goliath.
Okay.
And he says, when you experience something like what you're experiencing now, and you come out on the other side when the smoke clears and you have survived, he says that is the mother and father of courage. You've taken the worst thing the world could throw at you, and you when you get out the other end, you dust yourself off, and you realize you're still standing. You know, it makes you less risk averse because you've been through.
Right.
You know, I mean, like as we started, aortic valve replacements, double bypass, heart attack, half mile in the woods by myself. I got T-Mobile, so I didn't have cell service. Made it out on my own. I can tell you what the barrel of my gun tastes like. I lost a puppet on Star Search because I've done all that and I'm still here. Then that tells me that, I mean, I've taken a lot of what the world can throw at you, and then the dentists are taking it now.
Yeah.
You can just control the things you can control, schedule your time, and improve over this period. So you pop out the other side, leaner, faster, smarter, better. Then I think you can go long term.
That is fantastic. Frank, I sure appreciate it. I appreciate you giving up some valuable time, and appreciate you being on. And I'm sure that everybody who is watching and listening appreciates the advice. So,
and my little column for the magazine come out sometime in the near future.
Yes, we have. In fact, interesting. Just an aside, we have sort of we're regrouping. We've talked to the printer, and we're going to change the current issue a little bit and add 16 pages to be able to talk about this coronavirus situation. So I expect it will drop about the time that we're all starting to come back. And what I wanted to do was, give our bigger contributors the ability to add a little something through this, and so that docs, kind of have a resource that is timely. So
and whenever it prints, I'm sure there'll be some people who will, eagerly grab it like a lifeline.
Yes, yeah. Well, and they'll find your article. So
and you're welcome to put my phone number in there, because I had a kid call me and he goes, "I can't believe it's your cell phone number." I go, "How cool would that be?"
Right.
What, a fake number? I said, "I can make it worse for you. Hold, please." And I said, "Let me give you a comic twist." And then the hold music is another one bites the dust and another one gone.
Frank, it has been a true joy having you on.
My pleasure.
All right. Practice owners, as I would encourage you, guns, grits, and the grind. At this point now, 83% of dentists are men. So there's a big population that you're right in their strike zone here. So I appreciate that. And Frank King, thanks again. And until next time, practice owners, work on coming back stronger.
Yes, that's it.